All right. So happy to have a chance to be with you again. Thank you so much for your interest in coming to share this time to enjoy meditation together. So I've um, been enjoying over the last week or so having a chance to spend some time with my family, and I'm able to philosophize with my family a lot more than I ever have on past family trips. And I think it's been an interesting treat there, getting older, in old age and death and the threats of sickness and so forth. They're never too far away. And we've got this dying dog back at home. So we're sort of thinking about that, actually watching that death process unfold day by day. Um, and I'm finding a new language for discussing some of these deeper concerns in our life that's not the Buddhist terminology. And so it's been fun for me, very meaningful for me to have a chance to engage with my parents on that way, and begin to appreciate how we all have our own, you know, ways of finding peace and happiness and enjoyment, and not everybody is philosophers, so to speak. So I think I skew strongly in this philosopher side of things, but we all have a way of finding peace and harmony, and um, even if it's just falling asleep or collapsing on the couch or having some alcohol and so forth, we find ways to sort of rebalance our minds. We find ways to sort of find meaning in our life, even if that meaning is sort of following along with doing what we're supposed to do over the course of our life. Um, so um, sometimes following along with doing what you're supposed to do is the best thing you need to do. But sometimes things shake you. You know, you have a near-death experience, or you reflect on what's the meaning of my life, or what do I want to do with the next phase of my life, and you start digging a little bit more deeply and asking yourself some of these questions about what really brings me joy, what really um, do I value, what really do I find meaningful in my life, what do I want to cultivate. And so I appreciate the chance to have such conversations with you all, even though they're more monologues. But I appreciate you returning regularly to allow us to have these kinds of conversations and explorations about how to find peace and meaning in our lives. So I wanted to talk this evening about the process of mining our experience for value, like mining within our own body and mind and experience for value. At least one way of framing that, in terms of looking at what we already have, in terms of how much wealth we already have that's maybe underappreciated, and the power of just admiring and enjoying um, the the wonderful things that we have access to already. Um, and of course, beginning with our own life, but sort of talking through some of the many ways that we can just deepen our appreciation, that aesthetic sense of enjoyment for what is good in our own experience. We can begin as usual just by settling our mind and resetting a bit with some meditation. So this meditation allows us to slow down a bit, to disengage from the sense of the continuous sense of obligation or distraction, to slow down, to begin to notice some of the slower movements in our experience, to sit, for example, just with our back straight and closing our eyes, reducing the number of possible distractions, getting some feeling for our body, just beginning to get a sense for our arms, hands, feet, legs, face, head, chest, belly. We take a deep breath in and out just to reset. And another breath just to allow ourselves to relax. And another breath, just asking ourselves what is important now. And feeling the rhythm of our breath now, becoming conscious of it. Whatever increased sense of peace we may be feeling now, we notice that is just a few breaths away at any time. Meditation can be a 1-minute exercise, 3-minute exercise, 30-second exercise. The feeling of our breath swelling our body. We try to feel that pulse of our breathing, even down in our feet if we can. Feel it through our whole body. We can feel the slight buzz or hum, the sensation in our skin, ringing in our ears. These subtle signs of life, the background noise, the static of our existence. But instead of ignoring or dismissing, being indifferent to this, we think this is life. These are the signs that I am still alive. And every single breath, every single moment of our existence is a chance to grow, change, experience joy just from being alive, and to shape our mind, to redirect our life. We can reflect with gratitude on everything and everyone who has brought us to this place, this point, time in our life. Every interaction we've ever had has shaped us, but not nearly as much as every action we've engaged in. Nothing shapes us more than our actions. So we can reflect not only on those who've helped us, we can reflect on the help we've offered to others. Even just doing our job, just small interactions, being friendly, and so forth. Each of these is like a small jewel, like a small treasure that has shaped us. We bear the accumulated imprints, effects of every action we've ever done. We try to peacefully take in all of the good, beneficial actions we've engaged in throughout our life. We may have made mistakes and so forth, but we need to deeply appreciate every act of patience, discipline, kindness, taking joy in doing good, every act of meditation, every act of learning to improve ourselves. We give ourselves permission to enjoy, to be pleased with our life so far. This practice is called rejoicing, to rejoice in our own virtues, in others' virtues, multiplies and strengthens these good qualities. And we can rejoice without pride. We can think, it is not just through my own effort that I've engaged in these good actions. It's through the inspiration of my family, teachers, deep tendencies from our culture or genetics. I don't need to be proud, but I can be deeply, deeply grateful for these positive influences that have shaped me so far and those that have shaped our society. Although we have received many kindnesses from others, our friends, family, and society, none of them greater than their encouragement, directly or indirectly, for us to practice virtue. That's the greatest kindness of all, that we have received some encouragement to act in beneficial ways. And then we can generate a good intention that to use this brief time that we have together to deepen our own wisdom, deepen our own strength of mind, be able to continue and to deepen these practices throughout our life. And with this intention, we can open our eyes to rise from our meditation. So, in that meditation, it's um, it's interesting. The meditation on gratitude for others, for those who have been kind to us, may come relatively naturally, at least, whether weakly or strongly. It may be something, if I say, think of someone you're grateful for, hopefully uh, that there's an experience, a mind that's not too far away, that you can bring to mind, recall, and feel grateful for. If we, um, at least my natural tendency, if I think about being grateful for my own good acts that I've done in the past, there is some. I'm a little bit slower to connect with that, a little bit more reluctant to connect with that. I'd love to hear your experience, but I think maybe there is some fear of being, self-centered by reflecting on our own goodness, or maybe, maybe for some people, they just think of themselves as amazing all the time. Other people, it's a little less comfortable to think that way. There's some fear of developing pride, at least in my mind. There's some fear of developing pride. But I think it's helpful, at least for me, to reflect on even the beneficial acts that we've engaged in. They've really come just because of the good influences that we've been under. The good influence of our parents, and society, and so forth. The bad actions as well, also through the influence of others. But the point is, normally, it's very beneficial for us to credit others with our success. It's very harmful to credit others for our failure. Normally, we do the opposite. This attribution bias, I think it's called, that if something goes well, we tend to take credit for it. If something goes poorly, we tend to blame somebody else. Um, this is just very natural human tendency. Early on in when I first met these formal teachings in my early 20s, I was very, very keen and determined. And one of the teachings that I was given was that often to practice Dharma, or to practice training your mind, all you need to do is do the opposite of whatever you would normally do. And more often than not, that's the right way to practice. so the opposite of attribution bias is, if something goes wrong, we take responsibility. If something goes well, we give credit to others. I've got a feeling you can get a lot of mileage out of that practice. That one sort of opposite. One of the other tendencies that we have is just to take things for granted. My stepfather, every evening before dinner, he sits down and says a blessing, and it's very ritualistic. He always offers if anybody else wants to say the blessing first, and everybody always declines, or most people decline. And so he always says, and he says the same one, and it's a meditation on gratitude, and from a Christian point of view. And I commented afterwards that our ability, our capacity to take things for granted is infinite. And he said, yes, exactly. That was a very immediate and enthusiastic response. And I really enjoyed that, just that having the conversation, that our capacity to take things for granted is infinite. That if almost anyone among humans were to, in this world, were to suddenly find themselves in our place. Now, it may be that your circumstances are not very fortunate right now, so this may not be a great example, but for many people in our society, we're relatively fortunate. And if we think about most human beings being transported into our situation, how grateful they would be, right? But I can easily find infinite things to complain about in my job. Don't tell my coworkers, right? But I can easily find infinite things to complain about my job. But fundamentally, my job never puts me at risk of death, right? I basically get to sit in a comfortable chair, take breaks whenever I want. I can have snacks. It's an incredibly cushy job from any ordinary point of view, right? But nevertheless, I mean, I can feel incredibly stressed and like I've not got resources and that it's so difficult and everything's so scary. And, our mind naturally does that, and there's this movement that our mind does where we encounter something new and it's like, that's amazing, that's wonderful, and then we get it and then we get used to it, and that which was new becomes ordinary. And this movement of things from new to ordinary happens all the time, right? Who here is really excited about having the internet? Well, it's not as new anymore, right? We've had that for a while, right? But you get something new like video conferencing, mind blowing. When I was a child, told you it was science fiction that there would ever be video conferencing. I'm not even that old. But of course, it's utterly miraculous, right? It's miracle layered upon miracle upon miracle. It's just basically just gazillions of layers of miracles. And this quote from Einstein: either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. I've quoted that in the past, but it speaks to this mindset, right, of just appreciating the incredible, impossible good fortune that we have just to be able to breathe, to see, to speak, to communicate. Not that some people don't have some of those things, but if you're qualified to come to meditation class, you're at least breathing, and so some fundamental baseline where we can find some gratitude in one way or another. Even being grateful for our misfortune. So when we think about all of the people who have encouraged us to be good people, right, and to there were the people who told us to do good things, but we often, just didn't really listen to them very much. But sometimes the people, like I've given credit to one of my coworkers who basically got me back into meditation because I thought, I'm really losing my edge. I really need to meditate again. So for me, he's incredibly powerful. He's an incredibly kind person who's really shaped my spiritual life by pushing me to the edge. And so even those people who it may cause uncomfortable interactions, what are those uncomfortable interactions doing? They're showing us sides of ourself that, for one thing, can cause us to empathize with others. So for example, we see there's this timid side to ourselves, or there's this aggressive side to ourselves, or we begin to see I'm not that different from others. It's very easy to feel like, everybody, we all feel like we're special one way or another. At least I'm not like that. And those people, can you imagine? But you live long enough, you look carefully enough inside your own experience, you have diverse enough experience, and you realize, all of us could be any of those things, right? The thing that really scared me into spiritual practice in the early days, I think was probably going through puberty and basically having these new sexual thoughts and thoughts of violence, and then just seeing these things swirling around, and you're just like, oh my, I'm a human, aren't I? We're very dangerous creatures. There's a lot of intensity stirring here. I know that I'm not that different from anybody else. I know I'm capable of terrible things. We're all capable of atrocities if we were in situations of warfare and so forth. So I thought, I need to keep myself on the straight and narrow, because there's these, you begin to see that, anyway, there's this whole world inside all of us. And so, like Einstein's quote, either everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle. People celebrate Einstein for his scientific genius, and they also celebrate him for his wild hairstyle, and they celebrate him because he has a handful of these really thoughtful quotes that kind of border on the religious. And this question of miracles, as soon as you get into the territory of miracles, you're in religious territory, right? But religious territory, in a sense, is nothing other than digging deep into our experience, into these questions of life and death. What is the meaning of life? You start asking yourself that question when you're diagnosed with cancer, when death starts coming a little bit closer, when you're questioning whether you're going to waste your life, when you're feeling isolated or alienated. Some of these experiences, they can really prompt these deeper questions. What's the purpose of my life? What's my opportunity? Is it is there even a meaning or a purpose in my being here? And you start to get into these questions, and you begin to find then, in the midst of those fears, hopefully then, if you have some wisdom, you begin to find some amazing joys in that space. The joy of being grateful, the joy of seeing all of the things that surround us as miracles and so forth. So if you actually live in a world where you are continuously seeing miracles just everywhere, everything, the Buddhist term for that is a pure land. That's what's called a pure land. So pure land is where there is nothing ordinary, right? This idea of what is clean or what is unclean, what's pure, what's impure, what's special or what's ordinary. We always tend to move towards, we tend to be a little bit afraid of things that are unclean or impure, or a little bit bored with all the things that are ordinary. We crave things which are pure and clean and wonderful. But those distinctions are, they're made by our own mind, right? Most of us during COVID, we sort of went through this period of all of a sudden becoming aware of germs. Like nobody was thinking about germs. February of 2020, late March of 2020, everybody's thinking about germs, like door handles, and maybe you were already thinking about germs, right? But it's like this idea that everything you touch might be dirty, right, or contaminated. Like there's a little bit of a fear there. But the reality is that everything is dirty, right? Like our body is, dust, household dust is mostly human skin. The dirt in the ground is mostly decaying bodies and decaying vegetable matter and decaying rocks and so forth. And this body is just sort of being kept alive through a series of miracles. But as soon as our heart stops beating, as soon as our heart stops beating, the whole thing just sort of begins to decay and so forth. So we realize, there's this Christian expression, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? That's kind of what we're made of. What we're made of is not fundamentally pure. And so this kind of a provocative way of thinking about things to challenge our ordinary sense that we're living in a pure, clean world. If we're living in a world where everything is where we're taking for granted all of the things we experience, that's an ordinary world. If you're living in a world where you're deeply appreciating all of the things that you're experiencing, living in a world where everything that we see and we experience is like a miracle, then this is what's called living in a pure land, living in a clean, wonderful, amazing, new, fresh world. And it is created by the mind. There's only one way to get to the Pure Land, and that is by changing our mind. So a pure mind will see a pure world. An impure mind will see an impure world. A grumpy person will see unpleasant people everywhere they go. An agreeable person will see pleasant people everywhere they go, right? Like, I always forget his name, the old cowboy Will somebody. I never met a man I didn't like. Right, this super agreeable person. He brings this mind of Will Rogers. Thank you. I think that's exactly it. He brings this agreeable mind, positive mind, and so that is a mind that's experiencing value, right? So you can mine your own experience, I guess, to use that analogy of mining your own experience, just looking, and it's a gentle kind of mining. It's not strip mining. It's just it's really like a savoring, and this is within. I'm not actually trained in Western philosophy, but I've read a few Wikipedia articles. So there's a few fundamental branches of philosophy, and one of them is aesthetics. It's just like, what is good, what's enjoyable, what's beautiful, right? But our sense of appreciation, our sense of taste, our aesthetics can change and evolve over our life, and we need to acquire this taste for gratitude, really an appreciation for all of the amazing, miraculous things that we had we have experienced, but that have subsequently become ordinary. Right. So we've encountered an incredible string of miracles throughout our life, but all of them have become ordinary with time, and we've taken them for granted, and we're sort of on to the next thing. But what that means is we're actually incredibly fortunate beings, right? We're incredibly fortunate. All we need to do is to really take deep, full appreciation, really develop some mind that savors our good fortune, that savors our opportunity, that savors the relationships we have, the work we have, or the free time we have if we don't have work. Whatever is your circumstance, there's a way of interpreting it, right? That can be useful, and so that's what all of the teachings in the Buddhist tradition that I inherited, all of those teachings, they all boil down to one thing: everything depends on your mind. It's kind of the nugget, the essence. And if you change your mind, you change everything. You change your world. And there's a lot of very specific practices of changing the mind, like thinking, oh, this person's being very kind to me. They're showing me how much room I have to improve my peace of mind. It's just a way of gently reinterpreting. Oh, thank you, thank you very much. Right. um, there's a teaching I have in front of me. A book called Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. One of my favorite books, and there's a chapter in there on patience. And in there it says it's incredibly easy to find a person to practice giving with. Like, there's all kinds of beggars in the world and other people who need stuff. So it's easy to find somebody to practice giving with. But it's not hard, not so easy to find somebody who can help you to practice patience. And if you, like I've said in some previous class, if you want to practice patience, you need maybe a spiritual teacher who can give you the rough instructions. And then you need conditions in your life that will actually push you to practice these things. And so spiritual teachers are, of course, incredibly important, but there's a limit to how much they can convey, but there's no limit to how much the people around you can help you to practice patience. and some people in particular are phenomenal, right? And so, but they're hard to find. And if you find such a person, you should really treasure them. And this is like just a way of kind of reversing our normal way of thinking about things, just like reversing this attribution bias, where instead of taking credit, we're sort of taking responsibility for difficulties and giving credit to others when things succeed. Okay, so yeah, that was what I wanted to share, and hopefully find this helpful. So maybe we can take a little bit of time to just let this sink in for the last few minutes, and develop this yeah, this sense of how we can mine our own experience. So we can take Last few minutes in meditation, just taking a deep breath in and out to reset. A pure mind will see a pure world. An impure mind will see an impure world. Our capacity to take things for granted is infinite. But the opposite of this is our capacity to mine our own experience for appreciation, including appreciating our own virtues that have been inspired and encouraged by others. So we just reflect on a decision to mine our lives, to extract value and appreciation from our lives. Just hold this determination to extract as much value from this human life as we possibly can through our rejoicing and appreciating our amazing good fortune. And we can conclude by imagining what our world would be like if it was a pure land where we appreciated the infinite collection of miracles that we were operating within, and that others also could enjoy such a state. We can open our eyes and rise from our meditation.